right, welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, so ahead of the big elections for the states this weekend, we're talking to some of the candidates. Yes, the candidates. So we've got two who will be joining us later today on the program. We did reach out to the APC in Plateau State, but they were not able to get across to us. So we do have Mr. Caleb Muftwang, who is the PDP's governorship candidate for Plateau State. He joins us virtually. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. So what is the mood at the moment concerning the your campaign ahead of the election this weekend, having just come off from the presidential election?
Thank you. The mood on the Plateau is that of excitement, that of hope, because we in the PDP are particularly excited by the fact that despite the presidential election results going in favor of Mr. Peter Obi, the people of Plateau State overwhelmingly voted for the PDP for the National Assembly elections.
Okay, so tell us about that, because lots of people who perhaps observing from a distance think that the PDP will have a Herculean task ensuring that they clinch the #1 seat in the state as a result of what played out over the weekend. Do you think that that is not the case?
No, not at all. Plateau is PDP, PDP is Plateau, I can assure you. Clearly, we won the 3 senatorial seats, although one is yet to be declared. We also believe we won 7 out of the 8 House of Representatives seats, even though 2 have been forcefully snatched away from us, which we will rigorously contest in court. But overall, the people of Plateau State showed sophistry in the way they voted last Saturday, while the general sentiment went with Mr. Peter Obi. And I'm being deliberate about this. The vote on Saturday was about Mr. Peter Obi, not about the Labour Party. And therefore, the people of Plateau State have indicated clearly that while they may have preferred Mr. Peter Obi for the presidency, they clearly prefer the PDP for the other positions.
So does that then mean that you don't agree with those who think that, well, they had their eye on Peter Obi at the time, so, and for Labour Party, because they wanted change across board, and so for this weekend, wouldn't they also think, oh, wait a minute, now that we have our eye on this one, look, we want to do away with the old stuff, because they talk about PDP and APC almost in the same breath, that they want a breath of fresh air. Isn't that narrative part of what's being said there as well?
It's a misconceived narrative, I can tell you. With due respect, the Labour Party does not exist on the Plateau. It was a movement gathered around Mr. Obi, and simply some people tried to take advantage of that movement to key in. But like I said, and like can be seen, the National Assembly elections proved which party is on ground and which party the people of Plateau State prefer. So anyone who thinks that there is a Labour Party on the Plateau is highly misconceived. And I can assure you that come next Saturday, by the grace of God, the people of Plateau are going to confirm that the party they prefer, the candidates they prefer, are on the platform of the People's Democratic Party.
Are you underestimating the candidate who is the flag bearer of the Labour Party? Because many say he's been around as well. He's been in circles in government, so he also understands the tricks of the trade. So if you're underestimating, it may be detrimental in a manner of speaking.
With due respect, I wouldn't underestimate any opponent in any contest. I respect all opponents, but I can assure you that with what we know on ground, that the contest for the governorship, if I will bring any other party into contention, perhaps the APC, but not the Labour Party.
Why the
The
APC?
people who voted for Peter Obi, I can assure you 80% of the people who voted for Peter Obi are members of the PDP. And therefore, after that, they are reverting to status quo to say that, look, they only went after Mr. Peter Obi because they believed in him. But I can assure you that the people of Plateau State believe in us, and they are going to vote for us massively. We won't underrate anyone, but I can assure you that we are on course to victory by the grace of God.
So could you shed a little more light? I mean, if you say, first you said that if anything, it should be the APC, not Labour Party. And then you say those who voted for Mr. Peter Obi were members of the PDP. What was the bone of contention? Why did that happen that way?
Well, you know, the Peter Obi phenomenon was an expression of anger, I would say, with the failure of governance nationally. People truly want change. I would doubt that. And many people found expression in the candidature of Mr. Peter Obi. But beyond that, local dynamics come into play. And I'm glad that our people were sophisticated enough, like I said, to be able to distinguish what they wanted at the national level and to express themselves also locally. There is an umbilical cord between the people of Plateau and the PDP. And even when we lost out of government in 2015, the people have continued to yearn that we'll come back, because they know that on a scale of 1 to 10, we fare better than the people on the other platforms, and that we are committed to the cause of Plateau. We are committed to social justice. We are committed to meeting the needs of the people. And I can tell you, given the colossal failure of the APC government on the Plateau in the last 7 going to 8 years, the people are yearning for a return of the PDP government, because some of the best experiences they've had in governance were under the PDP regime.
Well, you have promised, because I mean, we can all go on and analyze, you know, the local politics of the state and, you know, talk about what transpired, even though at the end of the day we might find that in the PDP, even the current governor was once a member of the PDP before he joined the APC, et cetera, et cetera. And, yes, you know, it will be very interesting to see how matters eventually play out on the Plateau. But what the people of the Plateau will be concerned about will be the person who can help improve their lives as it is. And I'm sure that not just the people of Plateau State, but Nigerians in general who have fallen in love with the capital of your state, Jos, you know, which is supposed to be a gem, you know, in Nigeria, as it were. So it'll be very interested in the development of Plateau State. So I want to ask you, what will be key in your agenda for Plateau? A number of people will be looking to see what you intend to do with peace and security, which has been one of the things that have stood in the way of development of the Plateau. Some people think that the APC has done quite a bit of job in providing some stability. What do you hope to do to up that game if you are elected governor?
Thank you. The perception that the APC has done something to be able to bring some stability is sheer propaganda. I can assure you that the people of Plateau State do not feel so. What has happened so far, where we are now, is that the people have lost faith in governance, in government, and in the people in government. And so our first responsibility is to restore trust in government. And by that, we intend to bring leadership to the people of Plateau State. That's our number one promise. We want to provide leadership that creates change, leadership that changes the narrative of our people. Of course, top on our agenda is the issue of security, like you said. And I was once a local government chairman, so I've been there. And we would leverage on the experience of the past in terms of man management skills, in terms of building inter-community harmony, in terms of reviving all the security assets on ground, the vigilante and the rest of them, so that they can perform optimally. We also had a head start under the PDP administration when we started a security outfit called the Operation Rainbow, which unfortunately has been allowed to die off. These are platforms of security management that we intend to revive. And I think that when people have their confidence in government restored, you'll find that security will be taken as a collective responsibility of everybody. Of course, beyond security, we have to create wealth in order to bring our people out of poverty. We believe that Plateau State should not be named among the states that are poor because of the natural endowments that we have. So part of the leadership skills we'll be bringing to bear is how to harness those resources so that we can bake a bigger cake for our people and we'll be able to service all the critical sectors of our lives.
Well, it'll be interesting to see the how of that. I mean, just what do you intend to do differently? But when I spoke to Peace earlier, I mean, if I recall that sometime in previous governments, especially during the government of Mr. Jonah Jang, the Plateau was a hotbed. Almost on a weekly basis, there were always reports of killings. Natives were always, in the news as to what was going on in the state. Now, that insecurity has not completely died down, but at least it's not at the level which we used to hear it in the past. So I don't know what has happened there. I know that there's been a reconciliation committee, and I think even an entire institution into understanding the differences. Parts of what we know has plagued the Plateau, the so-called indigenous settler crisis. How do you intend to, these are volatile issues, I don't know how it is that you intend to show leadership when this type of matters rear their head.
Thank you. Yes. One of the things I think the people of Plateau State are coming to trust me about is the fact that part of my CV shows that I've lived outside Plateau for a while. I lived in Kaduna State, which was a hotbed of crisis for over 20 years. And I have great experience on how to live in a multicultural society with many flashpoints. And it is the management of diversity that I intend to bring to bear. And key to that is that the leader must be seen to be fair to all, to be just, to be equitable, and that would inspire confidence in the citizenry, that they know that everybody is carried along. One of our missions in Plateau State is to break barriers of fear and hatred that have been built over the years due to a lot of misconceptions. And I think when they see that the leader is walking the talk in that regard, I believe that people will come along and they will be more relaxed and dialogue can take place and a lot of the conflicts can be nipped in the bud.
Well, that is for the area of security. I'm hoping that if you're elected, that you'll be able to walk the talk. I mean, if the people of Plateau decide that you are the person whom they want. But I want to also know what you intend to do in the area of agriculture, because that's one area where the Plateau seems to have comparative advantage. It is home to the production of crops that we might not be able to produce in many other parts of Nigeria. For instance, Irish potatoes, Jos is famed for his famous tomato Jos. There's also even some other exotic plants which are now being planted and grown on the plateau, for instance, strawberries. What do you intend to do about giving incentives to farmers and booming the agricultural sector in Plateau State?
Thank you. Agriculture remains our gold mine on the plateau. Like you rightly pointed out, we have been blessed with fertile soil. We'll be blessed with clement weather, incomparable in the whole country, and we intend to leverage on that. By the grace of God, when we come in May, the rainy season would have started, and there isn't much we can do other than to help farmers with better inputs at less cost. This is what we intend to do for the first year. Part of our plans for the first year will be how to also create the infrastructure that can harvest rainwater so that we can be able to expand the farming season beyond the rainy season, because the future of agriculture is in irrigation. And if we're able to expand the farming season, we can then, in the subsequent year, we can be able to do more in terms of improving on farming inputs, improving on farming methods, improving on even the kind of crops that can yield value for our people. You've talked about exotic flowers. It's still being tested. We need to take it to the next level. We need to be able to even expand the scope of the potatoes that we produce on the plateau. We need to bring in fresh seedlings. We need to begin to bring in fresh farming methods. And I believe that we can expand the value chain of agriculture beyond what is currently obtainable. And that is the point at which we can generate employment apart from creating wealth for our people, and they're able to pay taxes into government coffers so that our internally generated revenue can be improved upon, and we can be able to service the social sectors. So we intend to go into bring the expertise to bear in the agricultural sector to turn it around. And I'm sure that over a 4-year period, you're going to find that prosperity will return to the plateau because our farming will be taken to another level.
All right, let's bring in our colleague in Lagos, Ayo.
Chamberlain, well, Mr. Mustwag, I want to ask, around the issue of what for you would you consider the most difficult challenge any government that comes into office in Plateau State has to contend with, especially, let's say you come into office. What would you consider the most difficult challenge to some of the things that you want to do? You've talked about security. You've also talked about the fact that, there are economic challenges and all those things. So for you, in order to be able to achieve your desires as a government, what would you consider the biggest challenge that you have to contend with?
Thank you, Ayo. I've said it before. The most difficult challenge for me is having to build trust in government, having to build trust amongst our various ethnic nationalities. We have 54 ethnic nationalities on the plateau, and then we have other nationalities of Nigerian origin, and having to be able to create that synergy and harmony that our people will feel they have a sense of belonging. They are stakeholders in the Plateau project. This is the biggest challenge I see. And for me, this is what I talked about, bringing leadership to bear. And once people can be able to trust the leader, they see the leader leading by example, they see the leader walking the talk. Gradually, I'm sure, perceptions will be turned, and some of those imaginary barriers that people have erected over the years will begin to fizzle away, and we'll be able to bring our people into harmony and mobilize them into the workforce that will be required to transform Plateau State.
Talking about it, building trust through communication is one thing, and it will go quite some distance. But then there will be some actions or some what you call political decisions that you will have to take. Because as you said, quite a number of nationalities in Plateau State, some kind of recommendation or relevance will be sought or desired by these people. What actions, beyond after building trust, what actions are you proposing that will be sustainable?
Yeah, part of the strategy for building trust, like I said, is that in the government we're going to form, we're going to give space for as many interests as possible so that everyone will have a sense of belonging. And even if your own particular interest is not represented today, as long as similar interests are represented, you can have hope that tomorrow your own interests will equally be represented. So in terms of appointments, yes, we will take advantage of that to create trust. In terms of opportunities in employment, opportunities in business, we'll try to be as open as we can, as inclusive as we can, so that gradually people can begin to have a confidence, the confidence needed that they can actually thrive on the plateau, irrespective of tribe, irrespective of creed. And I'm sure this is achievable.
At the end of the day, the people do not really care what political party you belong to. They just want good governance. And I'm glad that Malkwe raised the issue with you about agriculture and the potential that exists in Plateau State. But to get that done, to get to that level, governance has to be dissipated to the lowest levels, consequently raising issues around the local government system. What for you has been wrong with the local government system in Plateau State in particular? And what are the steps that you would want to take, both constitutionally and even from your own initiative, the initiative of your own government, to ensure that government dissipates to the lowest levels and the farthest places from the capital?
Thank you. Having served as a local government chairman, I have more than average knowledge of how the local government system works. I think the first issue has to do with the constitutional provision about autonomy. But beyond the constitutional provisions, you have to deal with the framework at the local level. You have to look at the issue of the legal framework locally for the operations of local governments. Practically speaking, at the moment across the country, virtually all the staff of the local governments are employees of the state government because they are recruited, promoted, disciplined by the Local Government Service Commission, which is a parastatal of the Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs. So you find that as long as those operatives take directives from the state government, it hinders the autonomy that is provided for in the Constitution. But however, leadership also is key, because I was privileged to operate under the administration of Governor Jonah Jang, and I want to put it on record that local government funds were not withheld, they were not tampered with, and therefore the local governments were able to have enough room to operate according to their capacities. Unfortunately, that is not the story under the present administration. I know local government funds are being pilfered with. I know that that is the experience in many states. But when we come into government, we're going to replicate what we experienced when we served under the administration of the PDP, that will ensure that the local governments are aided to develop their capacities. Because once the local governments are functioning well, it reduces the burden on the state government. And I am a firm believer that governance must be taken back to the grassroots.
Tekele Mufwang, the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party in Plateau State, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning, and all the best to you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure being with you, and I hope we'll have some more time later in the future. God bless.
Thank you. Well, we will be back in just a moment with the Labour Party candidate. Stay with us.